I still remember the first morning he walked into my class. His hair was messy, his eyes half open, and his shirt looked like it had been pulled from the bottom of a drawer. I glanced at the clock. He was 20 minutes late. Again. I had already marked his name on the attendance sheet, ready to call it out with a tone that would make him feel the weight of it. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the way he lowered his head as if the whole world had already scolded him before I even had the chance. At first, I told myself not to take it personally. Teachers see all kinds of students, the lazy ones, the dreamers, the defiant ones, the ones who couldn't care less. But he wasn't any of those. His name was Jay. He was quiet. Always polite. Never talked back. Never made noise. He would just slip into his seat, open his notebook, and start taking notes as if he hadn't missed a single word. And every day, he came late. At first, it annoyed me. I'm not proud to say that. But I had rules. Structure. Discipline. I believed those things kept us all together. When one person breaks it, even a little, everything starts to loosen. Or at least that's what I told myself. Still, every time he walked in, out of breath, apologizing softly, I couldn't bring myself to send him to the office. I just couldn't. There was something in his voice when he said, "I'm sorry." It wasn't the empty kind of sorry students throw around to avoid detention. It was heavier. Real. I could feel it in the air, like the sound of rain against the window, gentle but sad. One day, during a break, I called him over. I tried to sound casual, as if I wasn't concerned. "Jay, is everything okay at home?" He hesitated, eyes darting to the floor. Then he smiled a small, polite smile. "Yes, sir. Everything's fine." And that was it. No explanation. No reason. Just that same quiet wall between us. After that, I watched him closer. He was always exhausted. Sometimes his hands trembled when he wrote. I noticed him hiding a yawn behind his sleeve. He rarely ate during lunch. I asked one of the other teachers if she'd noticed anything strange about him. She shrugged. "He's just shy," she said. "Probably up all night playing games." That's what they always say. But I knew it wasn't that. There was a heaviness in his eyes that no video game could cause. Weeks passed. His grades stayed steady, surprisingly steady for someone who seemed to carry the world on his shoulders. But the lateness continued. Every day, like clockwork. 10 minutes late. 15. Sometimes 20. Always the same look on his face, apologetic, weary, and quiet. I began to wonder what kind of life could make a 17-year-old look so tired. There's a strange thing about being a teacher. You start to see fragments of yourself in your students, reflections of things you've forgotten or things you wish you could forget. I saw a bit of myself in Jay. I knew that feeling of dragging yourself somewhere you don't want to be, but knowing you have to. When I was his age, my father worked 2 jobs. My mother was sick most of the time. I had to grow up faster than I wanted to. Maybe that's why I couldn't bring myself to punish him. I understood what it meant to be late for reasons you can't explain. Still, the principal started to notice. "Mr. Han," she said one afternoon, folding her arms as if to anchor her authority, "this student of yours, Jay, he's been late every day for a month. We can't keep excusing him." I nodded, pretending to agree, but deep down, I wasn't ready to confront him. Not until I knew the truth. The next morning, I decided to pay attention to details I'd ignored before. His shoes were always slightly wet, as if he'd walked a long distance through dew or rain. His backpack was old, frayed at the edges, one strap almost torn. His uniform looked washed too many times. When he raised his hand to answer a question, I noticed a small cut on his knuckle. Old, healing. But there was something deliberate about the way he tried to hide his hands. I started arriving earlier to school, just to see if I could catch him before class. But no matter how early I came, he wasn't there. Only when the bell rang for the second period would he appear, breathless, apologizing again. It became an unspoken pattern, me waiting, him arriving, both of us pretending it was nothing. One Friday afternoon, I found him sitting alone in the library. The place was quiet, the kind of quiet that carries stories you can almost hear. I approached him. He was reading a worn-out book, the kind of book you only find when you've spent hours among old shelves. I sat down across from him. "You like reading?" I asked. He nodded. "It helps me forget the noise," he said softly. His words stayed with me. The noise. I didn't know what he meant, but I could feel there was more to it. Over the next few weeks, I started small conversations with him. Sometimes about books, sometimes about nothing. Each time, he opened up a little more. I learned that he lived with his mother in a small apartment outside the city. No mention of a father. When I asked what he wanted to do after school, he said, "I just want her to be okay." And that was it. He smiled again, like someone who's used to carrying too much without complaining. One morning, it was raining, the kind of cold, relentless rain that soaks you to the bone. The bell rang, and once again, he wasn't there. When he finally appeared, he was drenched. His hair dripped onto his desk, and his notebook pages curled at the edges. Everyone looked at him, whispering. I gave him my jacket. He refused at first, embarrassed, but I insisted. "You'll get sick," I said. His lips trembled as he muttered, "Thank you, sir." That was the first time I saw his eyes fill with tears. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something about his look haunted me. It wasn't just sadness, it was exhaustion, the kind that comes from fighting a battle alone. I told myself that I would stop pretending not to see. I needed to know what was happening. The next morning, I left my apartment earlier than usual, before dawn. The streets were still dark, the air thick with fog. I parked near the old bus station, where I knew most students from his area came through. I waited. After half an hour, I saw him. He wasn't on the bus. He was walking. Alone. Head down. His backpack seemed heavier than usual. I followed him from a distance. He didn't notice me. He crossed 2 intersections, then turned into a narrow alley. My curiosity grew into worry. Where was he coming from? Why wasn't he home, sleeping? It was only 6 a.m., and class started at 8. I hesitated for a moment, feeling guilty for following him. But something told me I had to. He stopped in front of a small convenience store. The lights were still on inside. Through the window, I saw him talking to the owner, an older man. Then, he disappeared into the back room. I stood there, heart pounding. When he came out 15 minutes later, he was holding a small bag and looked even more exhausted. I realized then that he wasn't just walking to school, he was walking from somewhere. Somewhere he'd been working. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I wanted to be sure. I went home that evening and searched the area. There was a small restaurant next to the store. Its sign flickered, half broken. The kind of place that stayed open late, maybe all night. I had a feeling he worked there. Days passed, and I kept watching, quietly. Every time he walked in late, I looked at him differently. My irritation was gone, replaced by a strange mix of admiration and sorrow. What kind of boy works before school and still shows up with his notebook ready? Then one day, during lunch break, I noticed him sitting behind the school near the old tree. He was eating a small pack of rice balls. Alone. I walked over and sat next to him. "Do you always eat alone?" I asked. He looked surprised but nodded. "I don't like to talk much when I'm tired," he said. His honesty disarmed me. "You look tired a lot," I said gently. He smiled again, but his eyes gave him away. That was when I decided that no matter how uncomfortable it felt, I would ask him the truth. The following week, I called him to stay after class. The room was empty. The late afternoon light spilled through the windows, painting everything gold. He stood near the door, uneasy. "Jay," I began, "I've noticed you've been late almost every day. I'm not angry. I just need to understand why." He stared at the floor, his hands gripping his backpack. Silence stretched between us. Then, softly, he said, "It's complicated." I nodded. "Try me." He sighed, long and shaky. "It's just. I help my mom. She's sick sometimes. I take care of things at home. Sometimes it takes longer." It wasn't a lie, but I could feel it wasn't the whole truth either. "Does she work?" I asked. He hesitated. "She used to." Then he stopped. His lips pressed into a line, and I knew that was the end of what he was willing to share. I let it go. For now. But that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was hiding something bigger. Something heavier. A few days later, one of the janitors mentioned seeing him near the back gate early in the morning. "That kid," he said, "he's always around before anyone else. Carrying boxes sometimes. Don't know what that's about." Boxes. Morning. Everything started to connect in my mind. The exhaustion. The lateness. The silence. So, one morning, I made up my mind. I woke up before dawn again, the city still asleep, and drove to the area where I'd seen him before. I parked a little farther away this time and waited. The cold air bit at my skin, and I felt ridiculous, a grown man hiding in his car to follow a teenager. But my heart told me I had to see it for myself. After what felt like an hour, I saw him again. This time, he was wearing a different shirt, plain, faded, with a small logo on the sleeve. He wasn't carrying books. He was carrying crates. Heavy ones. I watched as he unloaded them from a delivery truck behind that same restaurant. His movements were slow but practiced, like someone who'd been doing it for a long time. My chest tightened. He was working. Before school. Every morning. I sat there, frozen, watching as he helped the owner move boxes of vegetables inside. The man patted his shoulder, said something I couldn't hear, and handed him a small envelope. Jay bowed, tucked it carefully into his bag, and left. He started walking toward the school again, shoulders heavy, steps slow. I didn't follow him this time. I just sat there, gripping the steering wheel, feeling a wave of emotions crash through me, sadness, guilt, admiration, anger at a world that makes a boy live like that. That day, when he arrived in class late again, I didn't say a word. I just looked at him. He looked back, and for a brief second, I think he knew that I knew. There was a flicker in his eyes, fear, maybe, but also relief. And in that silent exchange, something shifted between us. That silent exchange between us changed everything. From that day on, I couldn't see him the same way again. Every time he walked through that door, late and out of breath, I no longer saw a careless student, I saw a boy fighting to keep his world from falling apart. I wanted to say something, to help him, to make it easier somehow. But I didn't know how. Teachers are taught to maintain distance, to guide without crossing lines. Yet, that distance felt cruel. It felt wrong. The next morning, I went to the restaurant before dawn. The owner, a man in his late 50s with tired eyes and a kind face, was sweeping the front step. I approached him, heart pounding. "Excuse me," I said, "does a boy named Jay work here?" He looked at me suspiciously. "Who's asking?" "I'm his teacher." His expression softened. "Ah. Jay. Yes, he helps out. Good boy. Never complains. Works the night shift sometimes when his mother's not feeling well. My stomach turned. The night shift? I repeated. He nodded. He comes after school. Sometimes stays until 3 in the morning. Says he needs the money. I tell him he's too young for this, but he just smiles and says he'll be fine. I thanked the man and left, feeling my throat tighten. All the pieces fit now. The fatigue, the lateness, the sadness in his eyes. He wasn't lazy, he was exhausted. He wasn't irresponsible, he was carrying responsibilities no child should bear. That day, when he came to class, I tried to act normal. But every time I looked at him, my chest ached. How could a world allow someone so young to work all night and still expect him to smile through a math test the next morning? After class, I asked him to stay again. He looked nervous but didn't resist. I went to the restaurant, I said quietly. His eyes widened. He froze, his breath catching in his throat. You went there? I nodded. I saw you working. I talked to the owner. He stared at the floor, trembling. Please don't tell anyone, he whispered. Please, sir. I'm not going to tell anyone, I said softly. But I need you to tell me the truth. Why are you doing this? Why are you carrying this alone? He swallowed hard. His voice broke when he finally spoke. My mom can't work anymore. She's sick. Some days she can't even get out of bed. We had some savings, but it's gone now. I started working at the restaurant last year, after my dad left. I thought I could handle it, but, he paused, his eyes filling with tears. Some nights I fall asleep standing. I just don't want her to worry. I felt something break inside me. That kind of quiet courage, it's rare. It's the kind that leaves scars. You shouldn't have to live like this, I said, my voice barely a whisper. He shook his head. There's no choice. If I stop, we won't have food. And I can't let her feel like a burden. For a long moment, I couldn't speak. I just looked at him, this boy, barely 17, who carried the weight of an adult's world on his shoulders. Then I said, "You're not alone anymore, Jay." He looked at me, confused. What do you mean? I mean, I'll help. We'll find a way. Together. He blinked rapidly, as if the idea itself was impossible to believe. You do that? For me? Yes, I said firmly. You've been fighting alone for too long. Let someone fight with you for once. He didn't say anything, but his shoulders trembled. For the first time, I saw tears fall freely down his cheeks. He tried to hide them, but I didn't stop him. Sometimes, tears are the only truth we can speak. That evening, I called a friend who worked in social services. I told her everything, the situation, the illness, the boy's job. She promised to look into it quietly. Within a week, Jay's mother was visited by a community worker who helped her register for medical support and financial aid. It wasn't much, but it was something. When Jay found out, he came to my classroom after school, clutching his backpack. Did you do this? He asked. I nodded. He didn't speak. He just stood there, silent, before suddenly stepping forward and hugging me. It was quick, awkward, but real. I didn't move for a moment, afraid that if I did, he'd pull away. Then I placed a hand on his shoulder. You did the hard part, I said. You kept going. After that, something changed in him. He still came to school tired, but he smiled more. He started talking with his classmates, helping others with homework. It was as if a weight had been lifted, not entirely gone, but light enough for him to breathe again. Months passed. His grades improved. His attendance became perfect. Sometimes he'd still arrive a few minutes late, but now it was because he was helping his mother in the mornings, not because he'd been working through the night. I remember one morning vividly. He arrived early for once, holding a small paper cup of coffee. He placed it on my desk. "For you," he said shyly. I smiled. "You didn't have to." He shook his head. "You helped me when you didn't have to." That coffee tasted better than any I've ever had. When graduation day came, he walked across the stage with his usual quiet grace. But when he took his diploma, he looked at me in the crowd and bowed slightly, deeper than the others. I could feel tears sting my eyes. I bowed back, hoping he knew how proud I was. After the ceremony, he found me outside. His mother was with him, walking slowly but smiling. She took my hand and said, "Thank you for giving my son hope." Her voice trembled. "He talks about you every day." You reminded him that kindness still exists. I didn't know what to say. I just nodded, unable to trust my voice. Years went by. I continued teaching, new students, new faces. But none of them ever left the same mark on me as Jay did. Sometimes, I'd think of him when I saw another tired student, and I'd remind myself, you never really know what someone is carrying. Then, one spring morning, I received a letter. It was written in neat handwriting, familiar but older. "Dear Mr. Han. I hope you're well. It's been years since I sat in your class, but I still remember every lesson you taught, not about math or science, but about kindness. My mother's doing better now." She smiles again. "I'm working at the hospital as a nurse's assistant, saving money to study medicine. I want to help people the way you helped me. I don't know if you realize it, but you changed my life. You showed me what compassion really means. Thank you for seeing me when no one else did. Jay." I sat there for a long time, staring at that letter. The edges trembled in my hands. It's strange how a few words on paper can bring back years of memory, like dust shaken from an old photograph. Later that evening, I walked through the school halls, now quieter than ever. The sound of footsteps, laughter, and the hum of life echoed faintly from distant classrooms. I thought of all the students who come and go, each carrying their own secret battles, invisible to the rest of us. And I thought about how easily we judge what we don't understand, a late student, a tired face, a missing assignment. I realized something that night: teaching isn't about lessons or tests or grades. It's about seeing people, really seeing them. It's about listening to the silences between their words. Sometimes, all someone needs is to be seen. As I left the building, I paused at the doorway and looked out at the horizon. The sun was setting, painting the sky with the same golden light that used to fill my classroom when Jay stood near the window. I could almost hear his soft voice saying, "Thank you, sir." I smiled, whispering to the empty hall, "No, Jay. Thank you." And in that quiet moment, I understood that some of the most important lessons we teach are the ones that never make it into a textbook. They live in the spaces between people, in kindness, in empathy, in the courage to care. We never know the full story behind someone's struggle. But when we choose compassion over judgment, we give others a chance to heal, and ourselves a chance to be human again. Because sometimes, the smallest act of understanding can change the entire direction of a life. And if I learned anything from that boy who was always late, it's that even in the hardest moments, love finds its way to class, right on time.